Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 1 Minute Breakdowns, where we break down each and every fight on the up and coming UFC card in a minute or less. At least we try to. And this is the first episode of 2024. I wish you all a happy New Year's filled with success and prosperity. I had a little bit of a hiatus. I had finals that I had to take care of in December, so couldn't really focus too much on filming and leading up into this show today. I've been interviewing for different jobs and I've been training nonstop. So glad to be back. Glad to bring in the new year and continue the consistency week in and week out with this show. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start with these breakdowns. First fight, we have Malcolm Gordon versus Jimmy Flick. Both fighters are 5'7". Malcolm Gordon will have a 2-inch reach advantage, and both fighters are 33 years old. With this one, I think Gordon has been known for his suspect chin, and Flick has been known for the one round of cardio. And he's a quitter. And with all due respect, both these gentlemen will probably be my ass, but it's either Gordon on the feet or Flick on the mat. I'm leaning towards the first option. I'm just going to keep it plain and simple here. I think Gordon can also stay safe on the mat. He's a black belt in his own right, but we saw how he stayed safe versus Mokaev until that last 30 seconds to a minute where he got submitted. So he does have the defensive capabilities, even though Mokaev isn't the most aggressive submission grappler in the world. He's more of a control grappler. Gordon was able to stay safe. Um, he could probably sub Flick if it gets into like a deeper in round 2 or round 3, where Flick is just completely gassed out. But I do favor the under 1.5 in this fight. But no side, no bet here. I think this is just a terrible fight to bet on. So stay away at all costs. At least I know I am. Next up, we have Jasmine Jasudavicius going up against Priscilla Cachoeira. Both ladies are 5'7". Jasmine's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, and Jasmine is a year younger. In this fight, one thing to note is the fight moved from 125 to 135 because Cachoeira could not make the required weight cut. But the important thing to highlight here is Jasmine did not have to cut to 125 before finding this news out, which is a huge advantage. Jasmine didn't drain out her body to cut, and it just saves a lot of energy and it's less taxing on the body. So that's a good thing for Jasmine here. Up a weight class, I think she's just going to be the much bigger girl here, especially on the mat. We know Priscilla, she struggles on the mat and she doesn't have good defensive capabilities. So I think Jasmine's going to be able to take her down at will here. And as the tape has shown, Priscilla does not know basic jiu-jitsu. So the poor ground game and takedown defense, all of that leads me to believe that the hometown favorite gets this done and gets it done inside the distance. I want to say by submission here, rear naked choke. Next up, we have Johan Lainez going up against Sam Patterson. Johan Lainez is the older fighter here by 4 years. He'll be the shorter fighter by 2 inches and will be giving up 2 inches in reach. Lainez here, keynote actually, before I get into the Lainez breakdown. Patterson is moving up to 170. He's formerly at 155 for most of his career, but we saw he had a lot of durability issues and question marks regarding that. But the UFC pairing him up with a guy in Johan Lainez, who himself is a very hard hitter, man, it's just very tough for me to see a way for Patterson to win this unless Lainez shoots a sloppy takedown if he's gassed out and Patterson can snatch up the neck here. Because he's had a couple of these long man chokes in his career, a couple of ninja chokes, guillotines. But for me, I just think Lainez is bound to find the button here, and I think he knocks out Sam Patterson more often than not. Now, can he do it in the first round where he has most of his win condition implied in? Maybe. It just depends. We haven't seen how Sam Patterson looks at 170 and how his chin holds up. But until proven otherwise, I'm going to assume that his chin is the same, and Johan Lainez gets this done inside the distance via KO in round 1. Next fight up, we have Jillian Robertson going up against Polyana Viana. Jillian Robertson is the younger fighter here by 3 years. Both fighters are 5'5". and Jillian will be giving up 4 inches in reach. This is a fight where I bounced back and forth on. Ultimately, I think the better read here is fight ends under 2.5 rounds, and the side I lean towards is Jillian to get it done inside the distance. Pollyanna gets taken down by almost everyone and is very content playing off of her back, and I think that's it attributes to her being confident in her jujitsu, but not being able to execute at the same time. I know she has a couple of those armbar finishes in her career, but those are very low volume finishes, and especially against someone in Jillian who is an ace on the mat and is very good with the jujitsu. I doubt she gets subbed via armbar in the guard. Jillian has been vocal about getting a KO and realizing and showing the world her nickname, the Savage, is true. And she's been looking for ground and pound finishes over her last 2 fights, but just could not get the job done. I think this might be a good way to target this fight with a big plus money number, round two, round three KO. Pollyanna also has power in her hands as long as this fight's standing. I think she's live, but as long as it's on the mat, I think it's Jillian all day. So for me, Jillian ITD under 2.5 is what I'm leaning for this fight. It's WMMA at the day. Don't overexpose. Next fight, we have Sergey Side or Saidi. I'm going to call him Saidi. Going up against Ramon Taveras the second. Saidi is the younger fighter by 3 years. He's a taller fighter by 3 inches and will have a 2-inch reach advantage in this matchup. This is a weird fight, especially after the first one was stopped early. I think Taveras is very much round one or bust, and he missed weight again. He's just pretty much limited to the big winging overhands in round one, and he'll gas himself out if he can't land them. Subpar ground game, and that's where I think Saidi shines. I think he's going to be able to land takedowns here, and as long as he stays safe in round one, he should win this fight pretty handedly. Probably a late round two finish when Taveras starts to gas out. So yeah, I like Saidi in this matchup for. Next up, we Charles Jourdain going up against Sean Woodson. Charles Jourdain is the younger fighter by 3 years. He'll be the shorter fighter by 4 inches. Am I doing my math right? 5 inches. Am I doing it right yet? Yeah, 5 inches. And he's giving up a whopping 9 inches in reach. Interesting fight. I like Jourdain in this matchup. Woodson did look a little rough on the scales today, but I think he can find some wrestling success in this matchup. Jourdain does give up takedowns left and right. So Woodson could possibly win minutes on the mat with this takedowns. Discouraging thing to see though was Woodson getting lit up and tagged by guys like Saldana and Bazookia, who, I mean, with all due respect, are just not UFC caliber. That's where I see Jourdain ultimately taking over the fight, working the body, mixing up shots from the body to the head, and throwing in combinations is where I think Jourdain can get this done. And if Woodson shoots a sloppy takedown later on down the fight, whether it's late round two, round three, if it lasts that long, Jourdain could possibly get a submission of his own. We've seen him get a submission in his last fight, I believe, if I'm correct. Yeah, against Ramos, and then outlasted Crone Gracie on the mat. So pretty decent grappling from Jourdain. I think he wins this fight handedly here on home turf. Next up, we got Brad Katona going up against Garrett Armfield. Brad Katona is the older fighter here by 5 years. Both fighters are 5'6", and Katona is giving up 5.5 inches in reach. Armfield is a known gasser. He could still be improving because he's still in his late 20s. I believe he's 20. Yeah, he's 27. And sure, it's safe to assume that he could be improving, but is he though? He hasn't really shown us any the willingness to improve fight over fight. And in a guy like Katona who will approach this fight in a wrestling heavy manner, I think Armfield's cardio is going to get taxed pretty badly. I do see Katona getting takedowns here over and over again and possibly finding a late round two submission after Armfield gasses out. That's just the way I see it. I've played this fight in my head time and time again, and all I see is Katona round 2 sub. So for me, it's a favorite or pass with Katona, but I think the price is a little bit blown out. I wouldn't touch the money line here. Next up, we have Arnold Allen going up against Movsar Evloev. Arnold Allen is the taller fighter by 1 inch. Both fighters are 29 years old. It's crazy. 29 years old and 11 months. And Allen's given up 2.5 inches in reach. This is a very, I'm not gonna say easy fight to break down, but it's grappler versus striker. And Evloev being the grappler, obviously, Allen the striker. I understand the love for Evloev here because of the heavy takedown approach versus a guy that doesn't really defend takedowns all that well. I mean, Allen let Nick Lentz take him down 6 times, which is a really bad look. And that's what most people are banking on. On the feet, this Allen is much better, much more powerful, much more technical on the feet. Mopsar usually just uses his striking to set up the wrestling. And if Allen is able to defend some takedowns or get up, I could see an Allen KO. For me, this fight is a dog or pass at the current number, but I'm passing. But I do see and the argument for both sides for sure. On to the next one. We are flying through this card. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys are gaining some good info. Next up, we have Chris Curtis going up against Marc-Andre Barriault. Chris Curtis, the older fighter by 3 years. He'll be the shorter fighter by 3 inches, and then he'll have an inch and a half in reach as an advantage. I personally think Marc-Andre plays right into Curtis's game plan and his fighting style. I'm a big fan of the way Mark's game is, and I'm a big fan of his striking and how he paces opponents down the stretch. He's facing someone in Curtis who just does the same exact thing, but at a better rate. That's not the right way of putting it. He's facing someone in Curtis that does similar things, but to higher level opponents. If you look at the past 5, and I know Curtis has lost a couple of them, but the accidental clash of heads against Nasruddin, probably going towards a loss there. Gastelum, that loss is questionable in my opinion. I think judges were scoring that knockdown. Buckley beat Buckley with the KO. Hermanson, yeah, I mean, he's just an annoying fighter when it comes to kicking. I don't think Barrios' kicking game is anywhere near the kicking game of Hermanson. And then he beat Rodolfo Vieira, who's primarily a grappler. A lot of people are factoring in Barriault's possible grappling path here, but I don't really see it. If Vieira isn't really taking this guy down, I don't know if Barriault's going to take him down. I know Barriault's the bigger guy in this matchup, but Curtis never really shown any strength deficiencies against these 185ers. The body work from Curtis is ultimately what I think is the game changer in this fight. Marc-Andre likes to pocket box, and whenever anyone gets too close to Curtis, he's ripping the body and he's ripping the liver shots. So for me, the way Marc-Andre looked against Julian Marquez, I know it was only 1 round, but him only almost getting finished in that fight was just a really bad look, and I think Curtis can take advantage of a lot of these holes. Give me Chris Curtis. Next up, we have Neil Magny going up against Mike Malott. Neil Magny is the older fighter by 4 years. He's a taller fighter by 2 inches and will be at an advantage of 7 inches in reach. It's just, I think, Malott hometown cooking. Magny appeared at Media Day mentioning that the UFC kind of forced his hand into this fight, and he didn't want to take the fight because he was still like fixing up his life apparently, or just situation with his personal life, and he just seemed like he was forced into taking this one. And him getting up there in age and visibly regressing in his past 3-4 fights, yeah, it's just the agenda the UFC is pushing when it comes to Magny is that he's a stepping stone in terms of their up and coming talent, and I think they're using him for the same exact way here, unfortunately for him. And I do think Malott gets another finish in this spot, probably by submission. Co-main event, we have Raquel Pennington going up against Mayra Bueno Silva. Raquel Pennington is the older fighter by 3 years. She'll be the taller fighter by 1 inch and will be at a 1 inch reach advantage. I think Mayra Bueno Silva has all the tools to win this fight early, whether it's round 1, 2, or 3, but I think down the stretch she could possibly gas here. And Pennington, known to keep a good pace, doesn't really show any signs of gassing out, and that's a worry for me. Otherwise, I would have played the Bueno Silva money line personally. The jiu-jitsu and wrestling is all inside of Bueno Silva. I like the way she throws her leg kicks. They look really powerful, and just historical numbers in these types of fights, 1-11 in the women's division when it's for a title fight towards the younger girl. So I'm gonna have to side with Mayra Bueno Silva here. Not enough cojones to lay the juice. And last but not least, Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. And what a fight we have on our hands. And this is going to be a really exciting one to watch. I'm going to keep this short and sweet because I don't have much on this fight personally. I think Strickland wins this fight 4-5 decision, or it's du Plessis round 1, round 2. That's how I see this fight playing out. If DDP doesn't get us done early, I think he starts to gas out and Strickland can take over late and possibly find a finish via attrition, similar to how he had the finish versus Abus Magomedov. Or he could write out a decision. Who knows? Passing on the fight altogether, as I mentioned, but very excited to watch it tomorrow night. I'm sure you guys are too. I want to shout you guys all out for showing up and supporting the stream. If you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me. My DMs are always open. And until next week, I will see y'all later. Let's cash these tickets and let's have a good event. See y'all later. Peace.